story, though.
The fact is, Jerry Dwyer says that the plane taxied out to the end of the runway, and in his words, it stopped there for the longest time. So, for Jerry Dwyer to say it was the longest time, he said he thought they were filing a flight plan, but
Maybe it was an engine deal where they.
Well, they don't know. It wouldn't be an engine deal because they would have come back if it was the engine. Maybe somebody wasn't happy. We know Richie didn't like flying in a small plane, and maybe Richie was getting upset, and they were trying to calm him down, or what was going on. We'll never know. But the plane eventually took off, and Jerry went and checked, and they hadn't filed a flight plan, so that wasn't what was happening. And then the plane took off and headed south and then banked round and went towards the north. You've got to remember there's three of the top pop singers in the country in the plane with this young pilot. And they were just off stage, so they'd be heated up, they'd still be high after coming off stage, they were probably fooling about, and who knows, and we know he wasn't very versed with the flying instruments, and it was easy apparently to mistake climbing to the left, and the new use of equipment, it gave the impression that you were flying to the left, but in fact you were going down to the right. And when the plane hit the ground, it was banking, and the throttle was wide open when it hit the ground. So it seemed to me that the plane, he was trying to gain height, when in fact, if he thought he was going to hit the ground, he wouldn't have had the throttle wide open. So, I don't know.
What about the weather? What did you say? We all know about the weather.
The weather wasn't bad. They wouldn't have been allowed to take off. I mean, for Iowa, people hear about snow flurries, but in Iowa there's always snow flurries, aren't there? So the planes take off in snow flurries. Everyone seems to think there was a blinding storm blowing, but there wasn't, because Jerry Dwyer said he watched the plane as it disappeared.
It disappeared, right?
The one question we have is, Jerry says he saw the light disappear, but it was up in the air about 4 minutes, so did he think it had gone over the horizon, or did he think that it had crashed?
Or that it went into a bank of clouds. But I do have an interesting anecdote here.
Hold on, old timers. Okay, I've settled down. Okay, go for it.
I heard this from my friend Jim Mason, and Jim is a record producer and songwriter. He produced the group called Firefall back in the 70s and 80s.
Excellent stuff. Yeah.
Handful of other groups of that nature. He wrote "I Dig Rock and Roll Music" that Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded in the 60s. So this is a guy that has big stories without telling lies. So, and it's not a huge lie. I mean, it's not a huge story, is what I'm saying. But his grandparents lived in Mason City in February of 1959, and he said that his grandparents were coming back from Clear Lake on some road just shortly after midnight.
That would go past the airport.
Shortly after midnight, and they saw an airplane laboring across the highway in front of them. And
Very low.
Very low. And they mentioned to themselves, that doesn't seem quite right, does it?
That would have been after we'd gone south, and I was turning around to go north up to Fargo and Moorhead. So
That'd be the only plane at the time.
There wouldn't be another plane up at that time.
Yeah.
So I just always thought that was fascinating, that there's a chance that Jim Mason's grandparents actually saw the plane in the air from the highway.
Could it be a fuel issue? Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought so. No, I'm sure the aviation authorities would have.
I'd be curious on just when was the previous flight or when it was fueled.
Yeah. Then again, they'd run the engine up on the end of the runway.
Yeah, you'd run it with engine temp before you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that would. But we'll never know. The tossing of the coin, well, years have gone by and we don't know who did what. I mean,
let's lead into what was said last night.
what was...
You weren't there, but what's your reaction to it?
I was there.
Well, you've seen it now.
Well, I was there. I heard a lot of it, but I missed some of it. But yeah, you know, I don't know. I've seen what Dion said. I've heard what Frankie Sardo, who was on the tour, said as well. Dion says that he couldn't afford to go on the plane because he was. It struck him that his parents couldn't afford $36 for their rent and their apartment in the Bronx, so he couldn't afford the $36 to go on the plane to rent the plane. So he let Richie Valens go, and he said that he couldn't stop talking about it after he'd done that. You know that Richie Valens had gone, and it was his decision to let him go because he won the toss with Richie Valens. So rewinding, yes, the $36. Frankie Sardo, who was on the tour and also from New York and obviously friendly with Dion, said that they used to gamble for more than $36 a night on the back of the bus. He said so. The fact that he couldn't afford it, or he thought of his poor parents, didn't make any sense. He said he couldn't stop talking about it to people on the bus. Frankie Sardo said he never heard him mention letting Richie Valens have his seat, and he was with him all the time after the crash. So how come he suddenly remembered these things? I don't know.
A skilled interviewer could get it out of him, right? Just some word association. Because there's got to be much more to that night than... With the performers, do they partake in the beverages that night too?
Well, I think Dion took more than beverages. I mean, he had to go into rehab a couple of years later because of his drug problems. So,
what drugs are we talking about?
I mean, I don't know, but I heard heroin. But
that could be.
I don't know. And it's just that seems to be maybe fogged his brain. Of why
maybe he doesn't really know what happened.
Why has he taken all this time to suddenly come out all these years later and say these things when people have said what happened? He's needed to Waylon Jennings has died, so he can't.
Jennings has his own story too. I think it's on record.
Well, he gave up his seat to the Bopper because the Bopper had the flu.
Oh, so he was just being compassionate.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is impossible. I mean, and
so the Bopper could have just dropped some. Was there flu in the plane?
At the time when they were in the dressing room.
They didn't check.
At the time in the dressing room when they tossed the coin, it was no big deal. Had the plane not crashed, had not everybody been killed, it wouldn't have been a big deal. So, and Tommy's a laid-back Texan, and he wouldn't have thought too much about tossing the coin. That was it. Only when they got to the end of the road, Fargo, when they checked into the hotel and found out what had happened, then it became a big thing. But they still wouldn't have been thinking about tossing the coin. They'd be just thinking about the grief about losing their friends.
Right.
So it was probably years later that it came out that there was a coin toss and what have you. So I don't remember it being mentioned for years after the crash. And over years, people's memories get fogged and what have you. So I don't think they.
It's the denial at first, now it's acceptance and trying to...
Possibly, yeah.
Trying to have a reason why it happened.
I mean, why not them? I can remember things that happened 30 years ago, and I know I wasn't at that particular happening, but I can visualize it because I've heard the story so many times from other people. And I know I was in bed when this thing happened, a fight at a party, but I've heard the story, I can visualise it, and I can imagine I was there. But I know I wasn't. And this is how, and that was only less years ago. 50 years later, who knows how somebody's...
So we need to get these characters in the same room and have them go through it and see if it stimulates the brain.
I don't think that's... I mean, just to start with, Dion says all four of them went into a room on their own. An empty dressing room. Well, there was only one dressing room at the Surf, and always has been, and the chances of that being empty, very slim. So there wasn't an empty dressing room at the Surf to go into. And how could 4 people toss for 3 seats? How could that happen? And
well, one was spoken for because Buddy
has just walked into the room.
No, I heard Buddy. It was like a last-second thing.
Hi, Connie. I'm in the dressing room. Like Buddy had booked the plane, but without telling the other cricket. I mean, it's more likely he's going to take his band with him. And Dion thought, as well as the $36 that he couldn't afford, he also thought, well, I've got my friends, the Belmonts, with me. These other guys are on their own. They ought to go on the plane with Buddy. Richie ought to go on the plane. I can travel on the bus with the Belmonts. That's one of the things he says in the...
Buddy was the star of the show, though, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he went on last, so...
he was the big ticket at the time.
Well, Richie had a big hit at the time. I don't think Buddy actually had a record in the top 20 at the time.
Also...
So, but he had, obviously. And I don't know... How can 4 people toss for 3 seats? If Dion says he tossed with Richie, where did the bopper come into it? Why didn't the bopper have to toss for a seat? You know, and he wouldn't to Buddy because Buddy booked the plane, so Buddy was going no matter what. So it doesn't make sense. How can 4 people toss a coin for 3 seats? Doesn't make sense to me. So that's one bit. The empty dressing room they went into, which doesn't exist, to toss 1 coin for 3 seats. And if he wasn't going to go anyway, why did he toss the coin? I don't know. So anyway, if you do see the video, you can tell me.
I do have a couple tickets smoking.
I think they said he carried a gun as well, so there's...
No, he was Christian though, wasn't he? He was from a very Christian area at the time?
Baptist, oh yeah, it's a big Baptist.
Oh, Baptist, so... if he was a drinker, he did in the closet.
Lubbock is the buckle of the Bible Belt. You still in Lubbock cannot buy liquor in any stores. You can't buy it in any supermarkets or any place. In a bar, you can drink at a bar, you can't take drink out. You must have known that back then. It's still the same.
Yeah.
But they played cards.
I guess they played cards, yeah. And, apparently on one tour he used to play cards with Chuck Berry, which was not advisable. Chuck always used to get paid in cash. Everything was cash.
Still does.
Still does, yeah.
I know that for a fact.
But he's got the good mattress plan going on at home, huh?
Yeah. But there's a story about the gun being fired and what have you. He used to carry a gun with him because he carried all the cash for the band. And
did they ever check the gun to see if it was fired? I suppose
exactly, they did, and it had been fired. But then
could have fired it anywhere.
Albert Jewell, the farmer who found it, about a year later or sometime afterwards, he said he fired the gun to see whether it worked. But then someone else has said that Albert Jewell was told to say that he fired the gun. Yeah, that's one of the stories that goes around. Yeah, there were no bullet holes anywhere in the plane, and then I've heard that there were two different reports done on it, and the first one said there were bullet holes, and that got lost, and they did another one. And
isn't there some pretty complete records of the investigation? Isn't
oh yeah, there will be. Yeah. The final investigation that was done, but what did they leave out?
What about the old wreckage? That old
where it is
story.
Now, which one do you want? In a hangar somewhere outside?
Well, because the most popular story is, rumor is,
it's been buried.
It's been buried. Okay, it's on the airport property somewhere.
Well, no, there's another one that it's been buried on an Indian reservation somewhere. Why the Indian reservation? Who knows? But
why is the fascination with the plane though too? It just
it goes, isn't it? People want a bit of the plane that Buddy Holly.
And the other one is that he's got it in storage somewhere.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, she's told me it's for his wife's inheritance. If he passes away, then she can sell the plane off.
Would there be money in that, really?
Could be.
Could be. And somebody tried to sell the Big Bopper's coffin because they moved his grave, and it came up on eBay. Bill
I'm
Griggs.
going to shut up for a second. Did you ever? Let's talk
is
about
this guy?
let's talk about the tradition, the music. There's some people say that this event's kind of in trouble. You came a long ways.
The event's in trouble, I guess.
Yeah. Just the performers are getting to the age where they can't get them to come and play, and they might want to rethink the 3-day.
Of course, they're getting older, but there's still people playing the music. It's great to have the original people there, but
You're probably the number one groupie of this event. Would you say that? He's up there.
There is actually another guy called Dave Harvey from England who's been over for the last 3 years. He first came in the early 80s.
Oh, really?
So he's another Harvey, but no relation. But he's been coming here since the
early days.
Before I have.
Do you think it's live and well?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so.
Nothing to worry about.
No, I haven't heard this. But is this local discussion?
Yeah.
Well, no. Obviously, the fans that come are getting older as well, but I think there's a new generation coming through, and there are younger people singing rock and roll, so why not get them to come over? You know, if you want more people to come from abroad, get an English rock and roll singer over.
Okay, the obvious question: why does this music sell so well? It's over 50 years old and still used in jingles and commercials and remakes and.
Well, it just proves that it's good music, doesn't it? You don't get.
Why Buddy? Why the chemistry? All the performers out there. Why typecast this one individual? Well, he's thinking about it.
Well, I've been thinking about this all my life. I don't know, other than the fact there is the fact that Buddy seemed like to be the kid next door, because he didn't have so much of a star persona because of the nature of the fact that he wasn't Fabian. You know, he was more of the homespun kid, but that's not it. That's superficial to the fact that there was something about the simplicity and the purity of that music that was incredibly captivating to me as a 9-year-old kid when I first heard it, and still sounds pure and innocent and young and happy now. Buddy Holly performed and recorded the most joyful rock and roll songs ever made.
Yeah. It's great prose. It's Shakespeare, isn't it?
Yeah.
In a way. You're a great culture reader of the, just some of the lyrics. I know he didn't write a lot. He wrote maybe half the songs that were hits, right?
He did, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just describe them. Maybe some thoughts behind some of the songs that you love listening to.
He sort of epitomized the era, really. I mean. When I was growing up, the girls all loved Elvis because he was sexy and what have you, and swiveled the hips and everything. But Buddy Holly just appealed to us. That's probably because we thought, if a guy with glasses can do it, all you got to do is learn a guitar. So
his demographics were everyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we loved him over in England. Probably more so than America, because we've got that smaller area with more people in it. And he came over there and he toured he played 3 concerts in London.
The media, when it hits over there, it hits everyone at the same time, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Where here it might be kind of a...
Yeah, in the state thing, over there.
West Coast will get here eventually, yeah.
Well, maybe, over here people can have a hit in one state and it doesn't make it and nationally. And a lot of people in the South have never heard of the singers in the North and vice versa. So there's a divide.
Here's something that just really struck me recently. I got a call from Larry Holly last week, and that's Buddy's older brother, and it was a charming call. I mean, I wish I'd had it recorded. It would be a memorabilia that I'd keep forever. But he sent me his new book that's called "I Don't Know How I Did It," and what the sense that you get reading this book of Larry Holly is what a down-home, honest, kind of roots, bedrock America experience Buddy Holly grew up out of. I mean, this was a very humble family that really didn't have any expendable money, but they always had money to teach the kids how to play instruments. It's like that was the thing that was important. I mean,
So a lot of Buddy is his family then.
how much more could it be? That's where he came from. And his mother especially, wasn't it his mother's side of the family that was singers and so forth? So it was that amazing combination of being raised in an absolutely humble environment, and they were church-oriented, music-oriented, family-oriented, with the fact that there was this perfect storm of genetic material that came together to create this one really, really remarkable talent. Because Larry and Travis, they still play.
They played, they took Buddy along with them. They used to go and enter competitions. And
What's the meaning behind That'll Be the Day?
What's the what?
The meaning behind it.
Oh, it's just that catchphrase from the Searchers.
The movie.
Oh, okay.
Jerry and Buddy went to see John Wayne in the movie The Searchers, and where he's searching for a lost cousin or somebody, and they kept saying to him, "You want to quit, Ethan?" And he'd say, "That'll be the day." And they came out, and then he said, "That'll be the day" about 6-7 times in the movie. Right. And they came away from it and said, "That'll be a good title for a song." I think they wrote it in 24, 48 hours or something.
Jerry Allison says that Buddy said, we should write us a hit song. And Jerry Allison says, "That'll be the day," because they'd just seen the movie. And Buddy heard the musical possibilities of that. That was just contemporary culture.
I think there should be a song called $36.
Well, there may be
There you go.
The other one is Well All Right. Song it was a B-side.
I gotta go in a little tighter than you said.
Yeah, so do I. But Well All Right, they got that song title from touring with Little Richard. Because when Little Richard finished the number, he used to go, "Well, all right, well, all right." And of course, that caught on, and they made a song out of that. They picked up on
a lot of music was a reflection of the times.
Yeah, and Buddy's mom came up with Maybe Baby. Is that true?
Well, she says so, yeah.
There you go.
She came up with the title Maybe Baby, and how much she wrote, she says she wrote the whole thing, but I don't know whether she wrote the whole thing or gave them the idea, but I think she was credited with it.
How about True Love Ways? What's the story behind that one?
Wow.
That's a classic.
Maria says it was written for her, so it was written for her by Buddy. And
and is it true that Norman Petty actually wrote a good portion of the music to that? Is that true or not?
What, just of True Love Ways?
Yeah, that they really collaborated on that. That Norman really had a lot.
May have done on that one, but I mean, we don't know because Norman put his name to record.
Right.
He didn't take any money for studio time. In Lewis' studio time, he put his name on songs which he hadn't actually written. So if it was a hit, he got money out of it. If it wasn't a hit, he lost
knew the
money.
game.
Yeah. Well,
that's another song, isn't it?
Learning the Game. Yeah.
Is that one of his last ones?
Yeah, that's what he recorded in New York. So maybe that had something to do with it. Learning the music game. I don't know.
And that was like one of the final chapter songs.
Yeah, one of the last songs. Yeah.
Let me like a lover should.